Good evening and welcome to this edition of A Walk Down Memory Lane. We are joined by, I'm your host, Earl Baston, and co-host Dennis Brown. Across from me, we are joined by members of the Big Blue Machine, three ladies who have got big smiles on their faces in anticipation of going back to the days of women dominating softball in this country. And Dennis, I know you're a bit excited because as we came on, you were talking about the fact that you're surrounded again by your people.
Oh, yeah. True Somerset people.
Yeah.
Well,
you know, one of my children.
What's that?
One of my children.
That's my math teacher. Works.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Well, Dennis, here's your opportunity. You go ahead.
Like I got her back now a little bit. Okay. This gives me great pleasure to welcome you guys to the program. Like Earl said, we're gonna have a bit of fun, and then going back in time when Bermuda dominated the netball scene in the Caribbean. And so my first question to you, to everybody, when did you first get involved in softball, and who was a big influence on you coming through? So that's for everybody.
Awesome. Well, I don't mind going ahead with this here because my influence was all the way back to Warwick Secondary School. And I had an awesome teacher by the name of Ellen Kate Horton.
Oh, wow.
Who introduced me to this awesome, this sport, really. And so that is where my days began, in Warwick Sec.
Well, we better, Alan K, you better wait till last because
she was gonna last.
Lauren?
Well, my influence, I think I was at Berkeley. I think what it was, PCC, Pembroke Community Center, used to train at West Pembroke School Field, where I lived in that area. And I remember going, and I used to chase the balls. I didn't even have a glove. I think I was about 10, 11. And then when I went to high school, I think one of also my biggest influences, believe it or not, was Bessie Horton. Bessie Horton was at Berkeley, and she was one of my great influences with softball, because I used to just be amazed at how she could hit the ball so far. So I think it was PCC, Bessie Horton, and also Winston Jones. Those were my great influences, as well as Braxton Stone. So those were my.
All right,
Alan K. This is amusing. I started actually as a Berkeleyite. The first year of the softball season period, when softball first started in Bermuda, I was one of the initial players. We had a team called the Tri-Teens, and we were students from high schools, and I was a student at the Berkeley. So for 1 year, I played out of the Berkeley Institute, out of high school, really. We had SANS students and others all on this team. And my coaches were Junior White and Boopsie Boris, way back when. And then, of course, year 2, I was with the Bluebirds, and I have stayed there. And of course, I'm smiling because Bessie joined the Bluebirds through me. Then came Lauren, and of course, I dealt with Angela at Work Sec. I didn't even think of all that when we were trying to put people together. This is kind of amusing.
Well, Dennis, just before you ask your next question, let me ask you then, Alligator, how did softball get started? Because when you said you were one of the initial people to get started, so who brought the sport and what attracted the sport to so many people?
You would know Diane Hunt, Diane
Yes.
Simmons. She was. Her
Mhm.
daddy he was down at the Eaglet, not Eaglet. They were called Zebras, the
Mm.
mighty Zebras. They were out of White Hill. He coached the team down there. Um, Mr. Tucker, Freddie Tucker, that would be Reggie Tucker, and those are his dad. Well, the Reggie you might know, his granddad.
Mm.
He coached out of Somerset, and it all started, I think, before that when the little boys from Somerset and Randy, my brother, was one of them, played baseball
Mm.
at the base,
At the base.
and these guys played baseball at the base, and we went to all the games, and we saw people on the base playing, the women on the base were playing, and eventually they started here locally, which was pretty awesome. And at the initial stages, we played against American women. And I mean, some of those balls would go by, zoop, you didn't even know they went by. So, yeah, that's where I think it might have all started.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dennis.
So Horton, another question. So the league, the softball league, how many teams, if you can remember, started the first softball league season, and um, name some of the teams. I remember definitely the Bluebirds. I remember the Diamondettes. Name some other teams, and
June Durant played for the, what were they called? Devonshire Ram?
Diamondettes.
No,
Before that.
Diamondettes were
Before
out
that.
of
Okay.
Devonshire. Angela, you mentioned them to me today. Rangerettes, Devonshire Rangerettes. There were the Rays out of St. George's. St. George's
Okay.
had a team.
Mm.
There was the base team. There was the Zebras,
Social.
the Bluebirds. Yeah, and eventually, Social Club came in.
Mhm.
So we had quite a few teams. Lauren came in much later
Mhm.
with a newer team,
Mhm.
but as we moved,
Mhm.
teams
PCC.
entered.
Yes, and if I can add into that, there, I actually started out with the Southampton
Southampton.
Rangerettes, and we were a young team and a force to be reckoned with. Yes, we were. So that would have
Much
been
much later, much
much
later.
later. That absolutely much later. But I just want to make sure I get that plug in for Ranger.
Yeah.
And
And
Lauren,
yes,
Lauren,
don't
where
forget
did
a
you
plug
start?
in for PCC, Pembroke Community Club.
Yeah, Lauren. So that was my
Pembroke
question.
Community
Where
Club,
did
that's
you
where I
start? Where did you
started. I
start,
did
and
a little
how
stint with
old were you?
Phyllis.
How
She's
old were
talking.
you? Still buffering a bit.
I
Yeah, Lauren, how
started at
old were you when you
15,
started?
and I think I might have been about 15, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, by the
Playing in
time.
right field, at Devonshire Rack, where Joe Braun used to commentate behind the box on the radios. It used
Oh
to be
wow,
live. I think that was my
wow.
first time, and I think we played against my first. It was against the Diamondettes, and I played right field, and it hit the ball over my head, and it ran to the wall. So yeah, that was my first experience
Mm.
um, playing out there under the big lights. Yeah,
Mhm.
Okay,
That-
location. I remember some games out the rack.
location it was at Devonshire Rack.
All the games were out the rack
Oh,
until they went to
Not exactly, because I remember playing in the Pembroke Hamilton Club in Warwick. I
PHC.
remember PHC. That was one of my very first games before we actually went down into the Devonshire Rec and then into the National Stadium. I mean, into
yeah,
the stadium. Mhm.
the rec was one of the initial places.
Yes.
Okay.
And during my time, the rec is where we started.
Mhm.
And that's sort of the start of softball. And then we even play games in Somerset. So we play games in Somerset,
Oh wow.
PHC, the rec. We played games down White Hill. So we were, but the rec was the place,
Mhm.
because rec had lights, and that's
Yes,
where
yes,
most
yes,
of the
yes.
games took
What
place.
what what days were the games generally?
Weekends,
I remember
like
weekends.
Friday evenings and Saturday evenings.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So obviously, Annika,
And
you're.
two games a night as well.
Oh, okay. Annika, you seem like the one of the ringleaders in a team of the gators that we have on here. But what was significant about putting together the team that would eventually go on after a few years winning a gold medal? But we had to start somewhere. So what was that
Yes,
like
I
generating
think
the youngsters and the what we would consider senior players?
I think when we finally got going and got out of Bermuda,
Hmm.
because for years we just played locally, we played against one another, and the extra team
Locally.
was the team from the base. Then finally, we they took a team up to Schenectady, New York, and I at that time I think Jonesy had some connection up there,
Hmm.
but at any rate, I was in university, so I couldn't go for that team. But the very next time we entered the world, did we go up to Connecticut? I wonder what year we went to Connecticut. Like 78, 70,
75, 76.
maybe 72.
72.
Maybe
Yeah.
as early as 72, we
Yeah,
went up to
72.
Connecticut.
Yeah, you played in the
Yeah,
Caribbean
that was our
amateur softball tournament in '72.
Okay, that was our first world tournament,
Oh,
and
okay.
we placed 11th out of 18, which wasn't bad.
Mm.
And
Oh.
we had
Mhm.
people like Marie Best and Bunny Best and a bunch of oldie goldies. Well, I'm an oldie goldie, but
You
bunch
weren't so old back then.
Mhm.
but yeah, so I think and we would go on, and we started with the CAS tournament,
Mm.
Caribbean amateur softball tournament, where there were
Hmm.
just four teams, and our first trip in that was up. We went to Belize, and we placed third um, in Belize. And, the players then were Louis Steed played. Um, we had some gems back then. And Louis was the shortstop,
Mhm.
Mm.
I the
Mm.
center fielder. But Lois got injured in Belize, and I was brought in to shortstop.
Mhm.
And there I lived for the rest of my
That's great.
career.
Mhm.
But so,
Our injury
and
changes the
we
position.
lost in Belize, but we
Hmm.
would return every year. The next year was in Bermuda. We
Yeah.
won in Bermuda. And I think for about 5 or 6 years straight, we won that tournament. Well, or
Mm.
maybe 5 years because we lost in 77.
Mhm.
Right. But let me
Yeah.
ask Lauren. Let me ask Lauren a quick question. Lauren, coming as a youngster, coming into a veteran team,
Mhm.
things are gelling. Were you intimidated about getting into that team, and what did you feel as you became a member?
I must say I was because I played in Colombia. So I was what, 18 into that. I mean, I looked up to Alan Cade and Alva Forbes, and they were much older than me. So I was just like this little kitten that just did what I was told. So I just went
Mhm.
with my heart. I got in. I had to work really, really hard because back then, the bench was strong. If you had
Yeah.
9 players on the field, you had 10. I mean, Whatever they told me to do, I did. And
Yes.
I just relied on my abilities. And that's how, I just had to stick to it. But I had a lot of people to look up to, a lot of people that were very helpful. They never like kept it to themselves. Everyone worked hard as a team. And you can see that on the field. We all
Well,
worked really hard. Yeah.
can I add that Lauren at 18, and it's amazing when you think of it. Lauren came into the team, she was only 18, and she played first base. And she had to catch some hard balls because the rest of us were throwing. And Lauren was like a champ. She was just pulling them in. We'd say, just show us the target. We can't miss.
Ah,
And she had a great first season with us.
sure. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, Dennis, you're up with your next question. We'll be right back.
John Barrett and Son, Bermuda's leading distributor of fine beverages, have brought us something fresh and exciting this month. Mystic Juices, skillfully blended for captivating flavor and loaded with nutritional value. Mystic Juices not only taste remarkably good, one serving will supply an abundance of vitamins A and C, more than the certified measure needed to meet your daily requirements. This month we're featuring delicious and nutritious Mystic Juices in an enticing range of flavors in 64 and 16-ounce bottles. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back. Dennis?
Yes, just listening to Lauren's journey, when she first got into the national team, that sort of replicates my journey. I remember going into the men's national team at 16, and those days you couldn't say anything to your older players. I had guys like George Wayman, Joe Trott, Arnold West, Bully Beef, and a little boy like me. All I wanted to do was be a sponge and soak up all the information. And those guys, like Lauren said, they showed you the way. You know what I mean? And that's the difference between yesterday and today, because we were playing with men, with men. So George and, like I said, Joe Trott and Lorenzos and Gumbers, those guys, brought the young guys through. And young guys couldn't say anything. Like you said, do what you're told and stuff like that. But today, you know what I mean? It's a totally different world today. So I just want to ask Angela, how were you introduced to the national setup? How were you introduced, and what was it like for you when you first went in?
Well, I looked at it as being a thrill. And as Lauren had stated, you kind of waited your turn. They looked at you, they saw you with your capabilities, but they were waiting to put you in that side. We had some big names in that squad. And if you were called to do on the spur of the moment, then you just did what you were required to do. If you were required to get onto base, someone get on base and you get to the next base and bring that run home, that was what you were required to do. Okay, you didn't see every game. You sat on the bench sometimes, but you waited. But when you were called on, you were ready. We had the coaches that fortified us, that encouraged us every turn. And like I said, you were ever ready on that bench. It was never Never. Oh, I'm not ready, coach. Yes, you were ready because you were one of the 18 that was cold. You were cold. You had to fight really to prove yourself in your own individual home teams
Yeah.
to be able to get into that team. Really. So when you were called on, you performed.
Mm. Alan Kay, let me ask you, what
Yeah.
when Winston J.R. Jones got involved,
Mhm.
what did he bring that kind of helped to elevate you ladies to be what you actually became?
Mhm.
I think Jonesy had a different idea of what softball should be like. And I think, I often think how he and Rudy worked together. Rudy was my coach in Somerset by that time, Rudy Minus. And Angela was my second baseman, by the way. She
Mhm.
was
Yeah.
second and I was short. Good combination. Anyway, Jonesy decided rather than us look like an all-star team where he's just picking people from each team because they're good, he picked people who could gel together,
There you
who
go.
could work together.
There you go.
So it didn't necessarily mean somebody didn't have better stats than you,
That's true.
but it might have meant that the head was on right, you were doing what was expected, you covered the way he wanted you to cover. And, I think of playing at second base, what we did, Angela and I mean, I had good range. So Angela knew if I was going after a ball, she was going to back it up,
Hmm.
because I had the range to
Yeah.
reach where I should have reached.
Mhm.
The same thing happened once we got to the national squad. And because he was training, ensuring that managers trained all teams in a similar fashion. So I
Mm.
remember the same thing happening with who was Mimi Keynes. I
Yes.
don't know if you know Mimi. Mimi played second base when I played short.
Hmm.
And
Run.
then later, Olivet Armstrong.
Yes.
So, we all had that idea. Hey, she's going after it, she can make it. Just in case she doesn't, I'm backing
There.
up.
Hmm.
So that's what we did. And we had an understanding and it worked. It
Hmm.
Mm.
absolutely worked. And we dominated that Caribbean.
Yes, we
Right.
did.
I think we won uh, 18 out of 19 games at one point.
Hmm.
Mm.
Then we finally lost
Well,
to Bahamas in
mm.
'77.
Well, quickly, Angela.
Well,
Um,
I can.
oh, go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
No, I
Yeah,
can say
Lord.
with Alan Kay talking. When I played shortstop and third base. But
Hmm.
Winston Jones looked at me and said, "You're a first baseman."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
trained me to play first. I was playing for my team. I was playing shortstop
Mm.
and third base,
Hmm.
and he
Yeah.
put me
He looked at your
first base,
strength.
which I had never played before.
Yeah.
Mm.
But you did a good job.
And very cold. He said, "You can do it." And he actually showed me how to jump. Thank you. He showed me how to jump split and all that. He showed me all the tricks. He showed me how to play first base.
Mm. Mm. Yeah,
Yeah,
because first base people have to be very
exactly.
flexible.
He
Flexible.
knew what he was doing.
Very flexible. Yes,
Hmm.
yes, yes.
Hmm.
So, Angela, I was just going
Yes.
to ask you about the difference between club training and national training. How do the two differ?
Club training, you were familiar with everybody that you were playing with. You had played with them for years. Now going on to the national squad, you're looking at different. You had to compete against that person that you were now playing with, that was on your team, that person that you were looking to back you up. So it was very, very, very interesting. A very interesting time for me. To like I said, they were all big girls. When I say big
Mm.
girls, meaning that they were there, and I was that one. Like Lauren said, you need to be quiet. Do what you were basically told to do, But breaking into that team was awesome. Intimidating at some point, yes, it was. You wanted your turn, but you had to wait. You know, um, I wouldn't change it for nothing. You learn from different individuals. Like I said, your team, Somerset Bluebirds. Okay, knew all of them. But then you got to know other people and how they work and how they think. And Jonesy, Rudy Miners, second to none as coaches.
Mm, mm. Dennis?
Yeah, so one of the things that really warmed my heart when I read up a little bit about the team and the philosophy of Winston J.R. Jones, and one of his philosophies was that nobody was bigger than the team,
That's right.
and that
Oh yeah.
that definitely warmed my heart because I'm
Oh
that type
yes.
of coach too. I don't care who you are, you either comply with what we do as a team or check you later.
That's
So,
it.
so how did his philosophy affect the team? Did it affect the team negatively or positively?
Mm-mm. It was positive.
Mm,
It was positive, sure enough. Because we weren't just playing for ourselves. Team play. Be a team player. Okay, you're not lifting up that bat and running by yourself. You're bringing a whole lot of other people behind you. So that's my take on that.
Sure.
Important.
mm,
I agree, Angela. One of the things we knew, I mean, even those who had established positions, we knew that at any time one
And
of these young people could come in, and that's what they were there for. So you had to be at your best
yes, indeed.
on your A game every single game.
That's good.
And we all worked extremely hard.
Hmm.
And stop and think, by that time, I was teaching. And I'm saying, I'm not going to let all these little people move me out. So we had to really work hard. And it worked. It worked.
Dennis
And
is
we
one of
made a
those.
way for them.
Dennis is one of those. Well, you're in detention because I need to go training.
Yeah. She didn't play around, man. She didn't play around at work sack, boy.
Yeah. May I add that
I loved you
I
all, though,
yes,
Dennis.
That's
yes,
it,
yes,
for
yes.
sure.
If I can just add, I was a runner. I had a
Mm,
bet as one of the younger team players. I had a
mhm,
bet and I could use that bet, but I was swift. So therefore, those coaches knew where to best use me for the
mm,
team to win. And I was most happy to be able to just run, slide into a base to bring a run home for the team.
mhm.
Nothing better.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome. It
Lauren,
was
I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Angela about the difference between the club training and the squad training. How did you differ with it?
I think what happened, like you said, we were familiar when we played because we played with each other so you definitely listened, you worked hard. Yes, you had to fight for your spot. And so you knew, like you said, you had powerhouses in front of you. So you knew when it was your turn, you had to be on point at all times. So that's what I noticed was the difference. And then what we learned was how to just automatically shift because we knew where their strong points were. We knew what our future was going to do. So those type of things, those are the things that Guernsey taught us, but as the opportunity. So you always had to be on point. You always had to listen. You just worked that much harder.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, we're going to take another commercial break. But when we come back, I want you to think about answering this question of the struggles you ladies had in making sure that your games were played in the environments that we were in, because a lot of women's sports were not always well supported. So we're going to take a commercial break, but just the struggle you had in that regard. We'll be right back.
The use of butter goes back millennia, and its exalted status in the cooking world and in so many kitchens is undeniable. Around 3,000 years ago, ghee, or clarified butter, was developed in India and is the cooking oil of choice in many regions of the subcontinent, and compared to butter has a higher smoke point, reduced dairy solids, and a more robust, nuanced flavor. And to Organic Valley, creators of a certified organic version of this versatile traditional staple. This month we're featuring Organic Valley Ghee Clarified Butter. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back. Elike, you have an answer for that particular question?
I don't, I think we did extremely well back in the day. I think we were respected. Yes, the men got more attention from the government, probably. I mean, you've probably heard the story of how when we were going to our first, the time when we won gold, we almost didn't make it.
Right.
And I don't think that would have ever happened to a men's team. We were poised to go. I mean, when we got at the stadium that day and we were told that the team was not going because we didn't have tickets, we thought, what? And I mean, on top of it, to add insult to injury, we had our clothes made. We had decided what we were wearing, and those days, nobody was providing your outfit but you. You bought the material and you had it made.
Yeah, I remember
we
you.
were all ready to go to learn that the team wasn't going. And I mean, thankfully, Joe Brown, who has a gift of gab, you probably know, got in the mix and found tickets for everybody. I smiled at a story that people were at the stadium crying because I don't remember that. I remember a lot of disappointed and angry people, but maybe there were some who were emotional, but vexed is what we were. And then when he came, there was elation, and we went and we proved them wrong because
Sure enough.
that was the gold medal game we would have missed. I'm pretty certain. Yeah,
It's the team.
that's the team.
That's us right there.
But with that, hearing that obviously there was a point in time where there was a possibility you wouldn't go. Did that kind of drive the team and you ladies even more to prove a point?
Well, when we learned, we were on the verge of going. I think we learned the day before we were going.
Yeah.
So we had worked hard. I mean, nobody missed training. I think even in the Bluebirds training, I don't know anybody who missed training. Because if they missed training, they weren't playing.
Out.
Yeah.
It was that simple.
That's it.
So everybody trained. And so everybody was there. The feeling was high. We were ready. And it was there. I mean, Angela, was that your first trip?
That was my first trip.
And Lauren, that was your first trip, right?
Yep.
See, so, how could I
To
let
Colombia,
them
that
down?
was my first trip.
I had to fight for them.
Yeah. Dennis?
So Lauren, due to the fact that was your first trip, who are some of these senior players that you looked up to on that team? You and Angela, I could ask that question. Your first tour with the national team to a big tournament. I think it was the CAC games, 78. So who were some of the
Yes.
people that you looked up to and drove you to be the best that you could be?
Well,
Lauren? Mm-hmm.
Alan Kate, and then Rosie Simmons. She was
Mm-hmm.
another one. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think Charlene Can, was she there? Like most of them were all powerhouses. So I looked up to whatever they told me. I just did what they told me to do. I just worked hard. They told me just keep your head down, and hey, most of them, because like I said, they were all
Yes,
powerhouses.
indeed.
I
Angela?
used to be
I like the
movie.
looks. Yes, I
So
like
I
the
was
look.
coming
Sorry.
in and they say go right.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead, Angela.
Sure, sure. Thank you very much. So, of course, Alan Kate Horton, June Durant, Alva Forbes. I don't know if you all remember Alva.
Yep.
Veronica Zool. Okay, she was one of the older strong team members as well. Rosalind Simmons. Okay, a lot of the others are younger players. A lot of the others are young. Rose Hart. She
Yeah.
was our star pitcher. Okay,
Mm.
we had to
So,
wait our turn. Lauren and I had to wait our turn.
so the pitchers on that team were who?
Yeah.
Alva Forbes, Rose Hart,
And June, Miss
and
Durant.
June
June Durant,
Durant, and
Okay.
June
Susie
Durant.
Clark.
So Susie
Mm.
Clark was a
My
Susie
pitcher
was
too.
a
apologies. Yes,
lefty.
Susie Clark.
Mm.
Southpaw. Susie
Yeah.
Clark was the Southpaw.
So
Okay,
what
so
type of
Ken, yeah,
rotation what type of rotation did they have them in? Because obviously you want strength at one point. You want, how did Jonesy work those ladies into the rotation to get the best out of the team?
Interestingly enough, the pitchers were all worth their weight in gold.
That's right.
Mm.
So the pitchers just rotated unless somebody had to be moved. But we were so dominant that they most often pitched the entire game.
Mhm.
Oh.
On occasion, they'd pinch hit for one of them. I
Yeah.
think Angela will recall coming in to pinch hit for, or even pinch run for
Yes.
somebody.
Mhm.
But those
June
those
Durant.
pitches were
I
equally
remember that.
awesome. And so
Mm.
for games there, they were able to rotate. There were sometimes, like when we were in the World Tournament, you might have needed an Alva Forbes because Alva can let a ball up, drop it down, turn it
Yes.
around the corner. Rose could hit a drop ball. They were amazing pitches. And
Mm.
for the most part, Razi caught. We had three catches,
Mhm.
but Razi was the stable one.
Right.
You see, Jonesy didn't believe in all of us getting a turn. Our turn meant that you are to pay attention. When you need to come into that game,
That's it.
you're ready.
That's it.
So he needed to hear you supporting those of us who were on the
Mhm.
field. And I mean, I fully understand that some of them might have been a little intimidated at times because our starting lineup, now Lauren was in our starting lineup. She
Mm.
was brand new, but she was the first baseman.
Yeah.
Olivette Armstrong, the second
The
baseman.
base. Mhm.
Ronnie Zool, third baseman.
Mhm.
Me, shortstop. Razi catcher. The pitchers rotated.
Mhm.
Left field, Joanne Smith.
Smith.
Center field, Sheila Gardner. And they probably all have different names now, mind you.
Yes.
And right field, Charlene Can.
Mhm.
And they were all dynamite.
Mhm.
So, when you're not missing balls and when you're hitting everything around you, it's very difficult to say, you know what, Katie, let's give so and so a turn. You
Mhm.
know, and that's not the way it went. We were there to win, and the others knew their role was to support.
That's right.
And if we were pulled out of the game, we knew no strange faces, you're out.
Hmm.
Mm.
Support who's put
Team.
in, you know. And
Yes.
that's the way we worked as a
Yes.
well-tuned
Yes.
machine. And that name was a good name for us
Big
at
blue
that time.
machine.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, so one of the things, because I stole a couple of things off Earl's website in relation to the CAC games, and one of the things it said is that in 8 games, the team outscored the opposition 56-6 to become the first Bermudian team to win a gold medal at any of the 4 major sporting events.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
right.
So my question is, they told you that you couldn't go, they didn't have the funds for you to go, but then you end up winning the gold medal. So did those same people greet you at the airport with open arms when you came back, or that's that's a question.
I
That's
knew
a
he was
question.
good.
That's a big question because that's what happens. We have no money for you. Now you're
Yeah.
successful. Now everybody wants to be posting on the airport and the newspapers. What happened when you guys got back? What type of reception did you guys when you got back?
Angela, do you remember, or Lauren, do you remember? I believe E.T. Richards was the premier at the time.
Mm.
Do you remember, Lauren?
I don't remember
And
who the
I'm
premier
pretty
was
sure he was at the airport,
at the
him and his
airport,
wife,
whoever they were.
and I asked them because we ended up having to stay longer in Colombia. For some reason, we couldn't get out. No, we got a whole team of girls stuck in
Mm.
Colombia, Colombia of all places.
Escobar country.
Yeah. So, so,
Oh.
and you know, I was due to fly to New York the minute we got back because it was my university reunion. And so when the team couldn't come back, we did some touring there, and then I was allowed to go up to New York. So I flew alone and almost didn't make it, by the way. The my plane put down in a field because it lost the use of an engine.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
And when we put down and they brought an engine in to fix it, they asked if I was going to get back on the plane. And I thought, excuse me, in the jungles of Colombia? Of course I'm getting back on that.
Okay. Wow.
A lot of the Colombians wouldn't get on. But I
Mm.
thought, no, I know about the cartel. I know about these things. I'll just get right here on this plane and
Thank you.
hope for the
Thank you.
best. So they flew after I left. They flew to Bermuda, but I
Mhm.
do recall that they were met by these people, and I believe you even had a motorcade around town, didn't you,
Yes, we
Angela?
did. We did. We had 11 cars that drove us from the airport and
Okay.
brought us into the city hall, where we were met by a crowd of people.
Mm.
See,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
uh,
Yes.
So was Joe Brown in the lead car, or he wasn't even in the Medicaid? Because he deserves special mention for that. Because after reading what I read about, how he got arranged for the 16 tickets, that's phenomenal. For somebody to go out of the way to do something like that.
yeah.
That was selfless. That was
Yes,
really selfless.
yes.
I think that he had just become
Mm-hmm,
the president of the league.
mm-hmm.
I think he had just become the president. But if you knew Joe Brown, he just had a gift
Yo,
that
Mhm.
most people didn't have.
That's right.
You know, when he left that stadium, I just recall him leaving the stadium and say, "Don't go anywhere
Don't go
else."
anywhere. I remember that. Don't go anywhere.
And when he came back, I mean, it wasn't a long time, wasn't a long time. When he came back, he says, "We're going. I got tickets." And he got
Wow.
people to sponsor all those tickets.
whoa.
And that
Mm.
entire team left. And I think there were 18 girls,
Yes.
perhaps, and
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
3 because the manager was Jonesy and the coaches were um,
Braxton
Minus
and
and
Braxton Stowe.
Braxton. Yeah,
Braxton Stowe.
yeah,
And then Liz Davis was our chaperone.
Mm, well,
yeah. So we all went.
there you go.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we have a question. We have a question to kind of bring us around to what can be done to revive fast pitch softball, I guess, in Bermuda? Or is there any possibility of it?
Well,
Definitely a possibility, but we need the buy-in of teachers. We
Mm-hmm.
need teachers who know the game, who can play the game, and we need um, to really start. Unfortunately, these days, we don't have persons who have played the game,
That's it.
Mm,
so they need to learn the game and be able to coach, and so they can call on some of those lot. You see right here, they're still pretty young. Who can assist?
I'm heading retirement next year.
I can
No
even
way.
assist. Yeah, but that's what we need. It needs to come back at the school level. And I
okay.
know I taught at Cedar Bridge back in 2000 and maybe one, and we played softball, and I
Mm,
coached the team, and they were not bad. So if we worked at it, we could bring it back. Men and women. The men were good too.
mm,
The men just had to deal with people like the Bahamas who were off the charts,
Mhm.
right.
and
Mhm.
but they were a good team, and
Mm,
I think it would be a good thing because there really aren't enough sports for women, in my opinion.
Yeah.
mm,
You know,
But,
and it was such a glorious time
mm,
in our history, in our sporting
really,
history. And I
really.
mean, to have been inducted into the very first Hall of Fame that we had in
Mhm.
2004, that's pretty priceless, if you
Mhm.
ask me.
Mhm. Mhm.
mm,
and to
definitely.
start and I
Yes.
100% concur about the schools, starting in the schools and the PE teachers having a knowledge of the sports. Because I remember in West End where I had Mr. Lionel Turner, and Mr. Lionel Turner was well versed in all sports. He taught me
Yes.
football and the basic fundamentals, not just having you go out there for GM and kick around or
Mhm.
cricket. He taught the basic fundamentals of sports. And when I went to work sec, that was even um, magnified by having Danny Seymour
Yeah.
as my gym teacher in Warwick Sec. So
Mhm.
we had my guys in my era had some good teachings in West End and Warwick Sec. So and that's the difference today, whereby you don't have the expertise of the
That's right.
PE teachers in these schools, and that's where a lot of our sports has fallen down. So hopefully I see Norva coming on his youth in sports. So hopefully we could get something good in there. I want to ask Angela a question
Mhm.
about um, what was the fitness um, requirements then for to play. So what are the fitness requirements for a softball
So,
player and,
Sure.
yeah.
and
Sure.
getting ready for a big tournament? What are the fitness requirements?
The fitness requirements was for you to show up to training every single time that training was called. Today, everyone is lifting weights and what have you. We had none of that there. We would have our cone set out. We'd be running from cone to the next cone. We'll be doing strength training that way. Be doing speed training, okay, to be able to run through those bases. We'll be doing the swinging of bats with weights on it,
Mm.
okay, to get that feel. Do you see me going into the stats already? You swing to get that feel to swing through. The fitness also the proper stance of how to hold that bat, how to have your feet apart, you know. And it was all a mental thing as well. You feel what you're doing. You visualize what you're doing. You see that ball going out over that shortstop's head, to bring in that winning run that may be on that third base.
Mm. Dennis, we're going to take another commercial break. When we come back, we have another question that I'll ask when we come back. We'll be right back.
John Barrett and Son, Bermuda's leading distributor of fine beverages, have brought us something fresh and exciting this month. Mystic Juices, skillfully blended for captivating flavor and loaded with nutritional value. Mystic Juices not only taste remarkably good, one serving will supply an abundance of vitamins A and C, more than the certified measure needed to meet your daily requirements. This month we're featuring delicious and nutritious Mystic Juices in an enticing range of flavors in 64 and 16-ounce bottles. Lindo's, why go anyplace else?
My inspiration to write this book has to do with empowering. I want people to understand what it looks like when you are in a position when you don't have the tools around you. If you know me or don't know me, the game, the beautiful game of football, soccer, is and always was a way out. Still fearful on what to do, what would happen if I say something.
What can we do in this book to incorporate tools to help specifically our group of young people in Bermuda?
Could you imagine doing a read with little people and breaking everything down for them and having them to have a voice and having conversation pieces, if it's chapter by chapter?
Welcome back. We got a comment and a question. Softball seems to present a very real opportunity for female athletes in teams to thrive outside of football. The question is it an interest problem or is it a government support problem? What's your thoughts on that? I guess the question is more to why did it fall off? Was it an interest problem or was it a government support problem?
That's an interesting question.
I think
it's good.
persons just fell away from it. We got to the point when things changed, and one of the problems with young ladies in sport, and we have it in every sport, they hit puberty, hit around 16, they don't want to mess their hair up. These two are exceptions, but
Yes,
Lauren didn't want to get her messed up. I don't believe
we're
that.
exceptions. We are exceptions.
Angela too. Whoa.
I said
We are
exceptions.
exceptions.
Whoa.
Okay.
I said
High
you're
heels
exceptions.
during the day and cleats in the nighttime.
I need to see
Uh-huh.
pictures. I need to see pictures of that.
Unfortunately, we would have training, and this didn't happen in every team, but in a lot of teams. Training, they wouldn't show up. Games, somebody was short. This is sort of what became a problem, and that's a problem in any female event. And we have this, and we have to stop it. We have to work with our girls. We really have to work with our girls, and look at little boys football. Look at how those boys are doing so well. The girls, I might add, are doing well in football right now. But we did go through a stage where girls would say, "Oh, it's Saturday. I can't play on a Saturday." And teams started to get short, and we would have teams missing, and because 5-8 people be there, not enough. So that's part of the problem. So I think that's part of the problem. But I think that we as adults, as schools, we need to make an effort to bring it back. Like that's something we were really off the chains at. There's no reason why we can't be again.
Yeah. We have a comment from the Boxing Association president. We would like to offer professional development to teachers for boxing. All teachers require personal development hours, but Education Admin and the BEC would all have allowed practical training to count towards those PD hours. So what Mr. Brown is saying is possible. So there's time allotted for it. It's just getting it into the system to kind of and believe it or not, all sports will be fighting for that same time, because how many personal development days do the teachers have, and how much can you actually get in
Right.
to get, you know what I mean? So it's got to be a balance of something's got to give, something's got to take, sort of thing. So yeah, Dennis.
So one of the things that really saddens me, because I even asked my daughter, because she goes West Pembroke in P6, and one of the things I asked a few weeks ago actually was, do you guys play softball?
That's what I was going
Never.
to. Mm-mm.
Never. Like, that boggles my mind, because that's where we need to start in the primary schools.
Yeah.
And what Nathan's talked about with the boxing, because not everybody's going to play softball, so
Hmm.
netball and stuff like that. But you know what I mean? And that boggles my mind to see how, like, our softball dropped off, our netball dropped off, which is coming back a bit, but you know
Hmm.
what I mean? And that's where it starts in the primary schools. And one thing I would like to suggest is we need to, the same way that the BFA is asking for qualified coaches in the leagues, now the PE teachers now had to take some of those developmental courses to teach the kids in the schools. And that's the
Hmm.
only way we're going to improve our sports in Bermuda,
Correct.
because we're being left behind by the Jamaicas and the Bahamas and the Barbados. We're being left behind because they start in the primary schools, and we need to stop talking and now let's start walking the walk and get this work done, because we're getting further and further left behind.
Mhm.
Definitely. Any final question, Dennis?
My last question to every single one. So
But
I'm gonna
also,
go ahead, Lauren.
I was saying also as far as sports is concerned, isn't it in the high schools? Like, doesn't it stop? Like, I think they do 2 years and they don't have
Yeah.
to do it in their senior
It's
years.
too
We,
Where we had to do
What she
PE
said.
we have a
the
choice.
whole
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's where I knew I was going to get an A plus
That too.
every Tuesday.
And,
I knew I was going to get an A plus.
and math.
Yeah.
And math.
And math, and math. That's my favorite teacher. So I'm gonna ask each person. I'm gonna name a coach. I'm gonna name a coach, and each one of you has to tell
Mhm.
us what that coach means to you, what that coach meant to you coming through. So I'm gonna name Rudy Minus. I'm gonna name Vincent J. L. Jones, and I'm gonna name Braxton Stowe. So each one pick one and tell us what that coach meant to you.
I'll let Lauren go first. Like,
Yeah,
please.
because I
That's
keep
not
dropping
fair.
out, right? Catch me while I'm on, right? Yeah. That's hard. Um, Vincent meant the world to me. I'm going to say that. But Braxton, as far as being our was very patient. He was he was a person that brought a lot out of you. Um, I felt to be very knowledgeable of the game, um, and I felt he was a good leader when it came to managing us at PCC. He was a good leader. He made you bunt with runners like bases loaded, go and bunt. Like, what? What are you talking about? Bunt, you can do it. I know you can do it. So he was that person that really pushed you as well. I mean, Jones, I mean, that's my guy as well. Jones was a club coach. He was the one that brought a lot out of me. And that I think helped me to start to get into the national sports. And Braxton was very knowledgeable and he was a strong coach. So yeah, meant a lot to me. Still does.
Okay, Miss Horton, and
For,
Angela could
okay.
talk about
For
all three.
me,
Talk about all three. Talk about all three. Talk about
okay.
all three.
Uh,
Yeah.
Rudy, of course. Minas was my main guy. Minas, I worked with the entire time. Once Dingback and Eggs Brown left, Minas handled the Bluebirds and even the Eaglettes. We both went down there together. So, Minas knew me well, and he knew what he could put me in to do. And we had an awesome relationship. I captained the Bluebirds, and so we had strategy. Um, and that's not to say that the others weren't important at the national level, but for me, Minas was very special. And whenever I injured myself, and that happened on occasion, you know, he had magic hands. He would, whatever he used, he would massage your part and you were ready. Jonesy, on the other hand, had ideas on where we're going. And he stood by those ideas and he trusted each one of us to do what we were supposed to do. And, you know, Braxton was a little younger at that time. So I agree, Lauren, I didn't have that much dealing with Braxton. He came in just at that time and he coached her team, which was much younger. So I appreciated all of them, to be honest, because all of them were responsible for us getting where we were. And, you know, Minus would say, if I'd sometimes say something, he'd just say, "What?"
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
No word, just what? Okay.
Angela?
Rudy Minus was a man of insight for a young person coming along, having been introduced to this wonderful sport by Ms. Ellen Kate Horton. I was in the Petticoat League, one of the younger players, doing very well, extremely well. And I decided that I was ready. I decided that I was ready to go with the big leagues. So I approached Rudy Minus and asked him if I can come up to Somerset. What do you think Rudy told me? Like I said, the man had insight.
Of course.
No.
Oh, wow.
He told me no. Because I had youth, too much youth. No, let's put it this way. I was too young, right? And the team that was up in Somerset, I couldn't get into there. I couldn't break into there. The same way the strength was in the Big Blue Machine when I came in 78, right? I couldn't get into that team, but he did, you know, him and Jonesy still saw something in Angela Bean that she can be a powerhouse in that team, but wait your turn. So that's something that I really, really learned. Be patient. Be patient. That's what I learned from these three men, Braxton Stowe. That's another story right there. You know, I learned to wait your turn. It's coming. Just keep on persevering. Be the best that you can be. The year prior to me joining Somerset's team, that Mr. Rudy Minus told me, "You're now ready." I actually was the MVP in most of the categories in softball. So I was ready to break into. While I felt that I was back then, I still had to make proof of things and respect those persons that were up in Somerset. Okay, so when I finally did come in, did I break into the team? No.
Oh, wow.
Okay, no, but I was there. I was there. I was a part of the team. The same way I was a part of this gold medal team, that came back with this year. You know how people bite that? Yeah, this is mine. Okay, I still have mine. So I'm thankful. And Braxton Stowe, he was a part of that management team. Very much so. Those gentlemen collaborated together what it was that they wanted for this island team. Okay, every single individual that came from every nook and cranny for the island teams, they gelled together to put us in the positions that we needed to be in to help Bermuda win. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful.
Can I,
Sure.
before you close, just list the names of that gold medal team?
Sure, not a problem.
Okay, real quick. The pitchers were Rose Hart, Alva Forbes, June Durant, and Susie Clark. The catchers, Rosie Simmons, Laverne Ward, and Beverly Santucci. As I said, they may have changed names now. Then there was Lauren Parenchik, Olivette Armstrong, Ronnie Sanders, Joanne Smith, Sheila Gardner, Charlene Can, Angela Bean, Roseanne Williams, Debbie Soltis, Donna Track, and yours truly. Thank you.
Whoa, whoa.
Yes.
Dennis,
History.
we're in the presence of greatness.
Yeah, for sure, man. For sure. For sure. I appreciate it. Very, very
Hall
much.
of Famers.
Yep.
Hall of Famers.
Legends, legends,
Yes,
legends.
indeed.
legends,
Yes,
legends.
indeed.
Hall of Famers.
Ladies, yes, ladies, I want to thank you very, very much for coming on this evening, sharing your stories, taking us down that walk of remembering back through the ups, the downs, and of course, making sure that you represent this country internationally to the best of your ability and bringing home the first ever gold medal.
Team Girl
Team
Medal.
Gold Medal
Yeah.
in an event of the four festivals that we now call today.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
very much, folks.
Okay,
Thank
guys.
you
Do
so much
enjoy.
for having us.
Yes,
Thank you
indeed.
for having us. Much
Thank you.
appreciated.
Thank you. Good night.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, good night.
Enjoy the rest of your night.
Thanks for having us.